I have had the pleasure and the privilege of helping to present the Stan Lee Excelsior Award for the best graphic novel.
Excelsior!
Which are a brilliant way of promoting the medium, you know. I've never really come across it before. I mean, something event like this happening in schools, so it's absolutely terrific.
You can do more in a comic than you can do with a film, and you can do something different with a comic from that which you can do with a novel.
Yes, comics are an extremely valuable resource. They need to be used more in schools and in school libraries as well. If there's anything that's going to get kids reading, it's comics, isn't it?
These kids are coming along and they've got some great ideas and they've got some very, very strong talent.
Right, hello, good morning, and welcome to the Stan Lee Excelsior Award ceremony.
Today is all about the Stan Lee Excelsior Award, and it's a book award that specifically aims at graphic novels and manga. It's been a brilliant response. I mean, the books on the shortlist have been read 842 times. That's each book read at least 100 times. I mean, it's just a marvellous turnaround. I never thought it would be anything like that.
We've tried to help Paul promote it. We mentioned it to lots of kids in the shop to get their schools involved. We helped them out a little bit with, we wanted all the kids to take something home, so we got some free comics to give out on the day. I think all the kids appreciate it. I think they seem to be happy, they seem to be very enthusiastic.
It started off as just something we would just do in Sheffield, but it got, as it sort of word of it got out, other schools from across the UK asked to get involved. And then the more we spoke to Stan Lee and the Stan Lee Foundation, the more they wanted to get involved as well. So it just raised the platform constantly, all the time, and so we'd ended up with the sort of thing you see here today. The Stan Lee Foundation, it's a charity that was set up in 2009, and its goals are to raise education and literacy through reading.
For example, in Philadelphia, we're working with a group called the Mighty Writers. It's an after-school program. They do phenomenal work with kids. Kids with disabilities, kids with social disadvantages. But when you go and visit these kids and see what they're capable of doing, writing their own comic books, it's very inspiring. That kind of program we're going to share with the folks here in Sheffield. We have a group out of Los Angeles, Team Primetime, same thing. They engage after-school programs, kids who use comic books as a medium to learn to read. There's going to be some specialties that they have we want to share here. So it's that cross-cultural opportunity that provides the best of both worlds, coming into one unified method of teaching. And of course the medium of comic books is an ideal way of getting that across. We were very intrigued by what Paul was doing because it was different. And we like innovative ideas and what he brought to the table. So we said, okay. Thankfully, we were able to arrange our schedule so that I could be here for this program because this is very important to us.
It's a wonderful endorsement. It really is. I mean, it raises it from being just a little Sheffield award to something that could potentially be global in a few years, you know?
It's not just Sheffield anymore. It's Sheffield and what Sheffield has brought to the world as far as comic book and working with kids. So I'm very honored to be here. This is a very, very big thing for the foundation.
There is a huge question about why is it that the British children, and particularly the English children, are behind the rest of Europe in their reading.
I used to be a teacher myself, so I want to see kids reading more and more. And I think comics, graphic novels have got quite a high vocabulary. And I think with comics, one of the barriers you've broken, the stuff they're reading is something they want to read.
There was some big European-wide research done and released just before Christmas last year, which was looking at the different factors. What is different amongst the English kids reading and French kids and German and Spanish or whatever? And the only big difference that they could find was that we read significantly fewer comics than anybody in the rest of Europe. So perhaps comics, as a step into literacy, which is what the Stan Lee Foundation are promoting, is a valid argument.
Well, they're very accessible, aren't they? You know, I mean, and also using, words and pictures, you can get across quite complicated information very simply, very directly, very easily. There is an amount of learning involved. I mean, it's a bit more demanding than, you know, it's a lot more demanding than, say, watching a film or TV that just carries on even if you're not watching it. You do have to learn how to put these together, but you put the words and the pictures together in your mind. But I think most people who read comics and kids can, you know, they've picked it up from an early age.
That was exactly where I came in. I was 5 years old when I started reading the British reprints of American superhero comics, and so I had the best reading age in my primary school year because I was reading unnecessarily long words like thermonuclear device and Excelsior, and they were in voice bubbles. So I'd started by reading the pictures. I could work out what was happening, and then these words were pointing towards the face of the person who was talking. It is the single best literacy educating device. I've got to find a shorter term to describe it, but kids can learn from that better than a wall of words, which is blinding, not just people diagnosed with dyslexia. That's a lot of stuff to look at when you're 5. Voice bubbles get around that.
I mean, actually, when you read a comic, you don't read it in a linear way at all. I mean, you read the text in a linear way, the speech balloons and everything. I mean, it's a very important thing, the placement of the speech balloons, the text boxes. You know, if you read them out of order, that's really bad placement, that's really bad composition. You read those in order, but your eyes, while you're reading that, you can't help it. Your eyes are darting about the page, they're even taking in the page facing. And that's why it's quite important when you design the comic to bear in mind the 2 pages, design them together, and design them so that they, you know, they work together, they're harmonious. And because you can capture a whole atmosphere within 2 pages. You know, you can turn the page, you get a different atmosphere. Or you can keep a surprise over the page. You know, I mean, I always bear that in mind. You know, because you don't want to be reading here that something that's hidden, somebody's identity, and you can see him on the other side of the page. That's no good. You know, you have to wait till you turn the page over.
I've been asked to attend this wonderful event because I wrote a graphic novel which is called Mesolith. At the behest of the editor, we had to include a sort of very dramatic, dynamic, threatening situation. So I took what we know as the William Tell motif, because I happen to know that William Tell is only a relatively recent telling of that story. The object balanced on somebody's head to be shot off by an extremely accurate archer has been going on since Stone Age times, for sure. That's not just a story, but I like to play with retelling these old things because I think they have different layers of meaning in them. The secret lies in the gaps between each frame. In a comic, it's not a continuous sequence. You have to participate. You have to work out what has happened between one frame and the next. And in contemporary comic conventions, you don't have to say meanwhile or later. It just cuts. And this activity of involving yourself, working out what's happened, makes you internalize the story in a way that watching a film doesn't. It's entirely external, watching a film. You're a passive recipient of something, you know, do it to me, and it does. It's magnificent what film does. But the halfway house of the completely interiorized story that you would read or listen to without illustration is the comic. And so that you can get ownership over a character in a comic in a way that's different from the ownership you have over a character in a film.
Novels, or comics without pictures, as I like to think of them, they are a valid art form. Poetry, valid art form. Short stories, valid art form. The liner notes on albums, valid art forms. Read them all together, and comics should, if it's equally presented on a level playing field, be, hopefully, the most exciting of the lot to an awful lot of readers, especially those who learn visually, which is like I did.
But what the folks here in Ecclesfield has been able to do is to say, look, we have an idea of bringing professional writers and connecting them with students to help the students analyze this work of body of work and say, how does this relate to the real world, to us? In a program like today, we saw Kev. He's a professional artist. He comes in and he kind of takes the fear out of becoming an artist.
A lot of kids get very excited by DVDs, movies, games, TV. I do as well. There's much more of it than there was when I was a kid. But the thing about the comic is they're incredibly fun entertainment, which can also inform and educate as well as entertain, but they're also something you can do yourself. With pencil, paper and pen, you've got exactly the same material as the professionals have themselves, and you can actually do it. You can then get exactly the same feedback as they're getting. You can draw a comic strip very, very quickly, stick it in someone's face and say, there you are, laugh, be scared, I'm holding it the wrong way up, whatever. It's very, very immediate, very tactile, and as a means of getting your ideas across, it's the fastest, the best.
To me, that's a genius move. Does that have applicability in the United States? Absolutely it does. Does it apply everywhere else in the world? Absolutely it does. When we identify something like that, it gets our attention.
Let's see which user of the voice bubble was chosen by you and yours at your schools. The Stan Lee Excelsior Award winner is... Your applause earlier might have given you a clue. It's Black Butler by Yana Kaboso.
Second place is Granville Mon Amour by Bryan Talbot.
We've all read it, and they all seem very keen on it, you know. I had quite a few asking me questions over doing the signing, you know, or just wanted to talk about it, you know, and describe things to the friends. I mean, I've had a lot of fun writing and drawing these, and they're meant to be fun adventure stories, and you know, that grip you. So obviously they work, and the kids have been gripped by them. I mean, I grew up on Rupert the Bear and everything, so you know, I'm sold. But people do like looking at animals dressed up and acting as humans. I mean, look at the meerkat adverts at the moment; they're extremely popular. But it's a bit like, in a way, it's a bit like the Italian Commedia dell'arte theatre, where they have masks and there's certain characters like Pantalone and everything, and they put the mask on and that's the character. It's a bit like that using animals, because you can use an animal head to suggest a sort of certain temperament. Like LeBrock, he's a badger, so he's very ferocious, quite a ferocious character, tenacious, like badgers are, you know. So you say try and choose an animal to suit the part. So it's a bit of a shorthand, really, isn't it? It's sort of getting. All you need to do is see this creature, and it immediately transmits a lot of information about the character. Although several times I've sort of played it against type, and I've got a wombat as an arms dealer in the first one, you know, so you can play around with it. But yeah, you can just by casting them as a different animal, you can tell a lot about the personality.
It's great to see kids who can identify a gifted person like Kev or Bryan or some of the other artists who are here to say, look, you've done this, work with me. And they accept that. Kids are like sponges. They'll accept if they can see genuine quality in the work and the passion. So I saw some kids today with some of their artwork and the comic books. Unbelievable.
Kids love this sort of material. If you're a school librarian, you've got to listen to your customer base. And if they want that material, you've got to provide it. So getting involved with an award like this gives you a very easy angle into it straight away.
Again, this is why I came all the way from Virginia to Sheffield, England, is because I saw what I thought was a great idea. It turns out it's even better than I had imagined. I mean, again, seeing these kids and what they're capable of doing, truly inspirational.
You guys are great. Thanks very much.